I'm going to share with you the 5 key components of a really strong value proposition. And I'm going to draw an analogy to you to the first iPhone that I ever had. I pulled out of the little box and I was shocked at how simple it was to operate this iPhone. And I'm going to then make that correlation to the value proposition. The beauty of a value proposition is how simple it is. If everyone on your team who touches a customer does not have the value proposition memorized, then I would argue there really isn't room on the bus, if you will, for that individual. You must be able to have the value proposition of your company memorized if you're going to be interacting with clients. Now it's incumbent upon the CEO or the leader of marketing and the CEO to create a rock solid value proposition that is so simple and so easy. It reminds you of the iPhone when you pull it out of the box. It's just simple. And the way I make it simple is with those 5 components of the value proposition. A, B, C, D, E, simple as that. It just flows beautifully.
In the value proposition, do you also incorporate, the mission statement of the company, the vision?
Well, remember that those are extremely important for the CEO to have their hands around. I'm talking about something different now. I'm talking about the direct go to customer messaging, which may incorporate pieces of what you mentioned, the vision, the mission of the company. But as a customer, I don't care about your vision and mission. Why? I'm trying to keep the doors open of my organization. So yeah, is it nice to have a cool vision and mission? But to me, don't care about that. I'm really interested in what can you do for me? How can you help me improve my costs, improve my productivity, reduce my costs, drive more revenue for me, improve outcomes, things like that. That's what I care about.
What are the 5 elements of a robust value proposition?
It starts with a high-level promise, and the high-level promise really is entitled or intended to help when a customer says, what is it that you can do for me? A very simple question. And the high-level promise is then 1 sentence, really tight sentence that allows you to say, we can provide value for you in this manner. And it's just 1 sentence. It's not a paragraph or it's not 3 pages of text. And it starts with, we can assist you with blah, 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 blah. We help you to drive improved outcomes and lowering the cost of care. That would be an example of a high-level promise. It's very big and very broad. And the idea is to get someone's attention because in the healthcare world, they're really concerned about what's called the triple aim. And the triple aim is improving costs, improving outcomes, improving the patient experience, which is related to outcomes, and then what's called population health. Those are the 3, what's called the triple aim, the 3 most important things that senior executives in healthcare care about. So you'd expect that if you're working into the provider side of healthcare, your high-level promise would touch upon those 3, one of those 3, or a couple of those 3 things. By the way, there's a 4th component called the quadruple aim, is what some people are now talking about. And that 4th component is, how can you help me to improve the daily life and the experience that my own employees in my healthcare organization have, because burnout is so big. So that's the first component, the promise. The next component of the recipe, if you will, is the enabler. And the enabler answers the customer's question of, hey, what exactly do you offer? Do you offer chairs or tables, or do you come and paint my walls? No, you have to very succinctly, in 1 or 2 sentences, share with a client exactly what it is that you do. Now, you don't have to talk about what makes you unique or how cool you are. We're not at that point yet. You simply share with the customer that we offer, let's say, for an example, an end-to-end portfolio of services to assist you with, pick a topic, engaging new patients who come in the organization, or we help you to improve your discharge rates with a end-to-end series of products and software and services. So just so that the customer has an idea of what you're offering, that's the idea of the enabler, which is number 2. So
Okay.
now we're on to number 3. You've got the customer's attention. Hey, I'm interested in what you're offering. Now the question the customer is going to ask very logically would be, well, what makes you unique? Because I just spoke with someone who also is involved in that exact same business. They offer improvement in my patient discharge rates or reduction in revisits to our organization. So how is it that you can help me, and how do you differentiate? Now, this is the area where you provide what's called your unique competitive advantages, or it's sometimes called my unfair advantages. And here's where I work with clients to list the top 2 or 3 or 4 max unique competitive advantages. So these are things that your company offers that absolutely no one else offers. I want to know, what is it that you offer? Why should I care? So that's called the feature and the benefit. So you'd list those 2 or 3 or 4, and I'll make a note here that when I work with clients, they typically will on first pass provide 8 unique competitive advantages. And then when I proof test each one of the 8, we typically end up with about 2 or 3. Why? Because the 8 are not truly unique. In order to make this list, you better be sure that you're offering something that no one else can. It's got to truly be a unique competitive advantage. And so when I ask them, hey, are there any competitors who offer the same features? Sometimes I hear, oh yeah, they do. It's just not as good. Well, it doesn't make the list. And it's really, really important that you never put on this list something that really isn't unique. And the reason is, if we train our sales team or our senior executives to go speak with investors, or we speak with potential clients, and they share with a client that they offer something, and that client later finds out it's really not unique when the company said it was unique, now we've got a huge issue, a trust issue, and another example where a salesman is lying. And certainly in my methodology or my approach, there's no room for any gray area about talking about something that's not true. And I like to give the quote, trust arrives on foot but flees on horseback. And what that means is trust is very hard to build. And all you have to do is twist it just a little bit or go into a gray area just a little bit, and you'll blow all the trust. So we can't do that. So once again, the third component that we're talking about of the value proposition is your unique competitive advantages. I want to know, what is it that you have that's truly unique, and what is the benefit? So that completes the first 3. Now we're on to number 4. Number 4 is the most difficult. And you mentioned a minute ago that it's probably the most difficult when you work with your clients on the messaging early on, and that is, how do you quantify your uniqueness? So here's what's called the justification component of your value proposition. It's number 4 on the list of 5 things of your value proposition. And the justification is, tell me why I should spend more for your product than anyone else, or with my status quo with what I'm doing now. So here's where the Excel spreadsheet comes out, and you have to justify over a series of years, potentially 3 to 5 years, using something called net present value or some of our mathematical formulas that help a customer see the financial benefit of investing in your offering. We're looking for not only financial benefits in healthcare, but we have another benefit that we can offer only in healthcare, and that is benefits with regard to outcomes. How can you improve outcomes? And outcomes, of course, is the fancy word for quality in healthcare. But in addition to the financial justification, we can also look for improvement in outcomes when you're looking at the justification section of a product or service or solution intended for the healthcare world. But I'll just reiterate, it's difficult. This is the most difficult section to really put a pencil to paper to help the CFO of an organization you're selling into to show him or her why they should invest with you as a result of the financial benefit that will be derived from your offering. It is extremely important, especially with tight dollars in healthcare today. That brings me to the final and fifth component of a really strong message or value proposition, and that's proof. And what is proof? Proof is to respond to the customer who says, I don't believe you. I understand that you have a great service, great product. I understand what you do. I understand what makes you unique. And I understand that you just told me that I can save $15 million per year. But you know what? After hearing all that, I don't believe you. So the proof section is where you buttress all of your key points, your unique competitive advantages, your justification with proof. And what is proof? What's the definition of proof in the value proposition? It's analogies, it's stories, it's quotations, it's white papers, anything by a third party, unbiased, highly credible document or quote where it will justify what you've said with a lot of credibility. So those are the 5 components. One more time: promise, enabler, unique competitive advantage, justification, and proof. And although those 5 seem super simple, the beauty is in how smoothly and simply you can combine those into a very tight document that's less than 1 page that then can be taught to every member of the team who interfaces with a client.
Excellent. Dan, I can't wait to share this with the rest of our alumni and entrepreneurs. This is really helpful. Anything else, Dan, you would like to share about some advice for entrepreneurs, for innovators, for startups?
If I was set to start a business tomorrow, step 1, value proposition. Really creating a rock solid value proposition that resonates and differentiates my company. There's nothing more important. That really has to be the very first thing. Once you've got the solution that you think is better than anyone else and you're ready to go get funding, as a part of the discussion with investors and as you're initially speaking with customers, what are you going to tell these people? You can't afford to misstep here. When you're working with investors and customers, especially at high levels in organizations, you got to have your act together. And when I say you have your act together, what I'm talking about, you better have that talk track down. And that talk track is fundamentally that strong value proposition. And it's really important. And I'm not sure I mentioned this earlier, but once you get the 5 components of that value proposition locked and loaded, and you have it memorized as a condition of employment, it is never, ever utilized in its memorized form. One more time, the value proposition must be memorized as a condition of employment. That's why it's got to be really short and sweet and tight. But it will never be used in its memorized form because it will be cut and pasted into a discussion with the appropriate client at the right time. So it's always customized, but you'll take bits and pieces out of it to work with your clients or investors, whoever you're speaking with.
Excellent, excellent. And I think it's very key what you're saying, because large sums are being invested in innovation, in R&D. And more the question of marketing, the question of value proposition is coming at the earlier stage to reduce waste in these investments, actually. So currently we're seeing a big trend where governments, but also investors, business angels as a whole, are really asking more about what's the solution you're bringing, what's the value proposition you're offering, versus you're working on something on blockchain or that fancy technology to really find out the real products, the real value that can be unlocked. So this is very, very interesting, and I can't wait to share this wisdom and knowledge with the rest of the team here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Before investment is made in a company, I want to know what you're going to use those dollars for. And are those dollars going to be directly impacting my value proposition? For example, I want you to be investing money that allows you to come up with one other unique competitive advantage. So yeah, I think that's right on point.
Excellent. So thank you, Dan. And so to finish the podcast for today, in the book, so what can people expect and who would be the audience for this book called Building Trust and Growing Sales? And what can people find in it?
I would say anyone who is disappointed with the current approach to selling, which is typically facts, features, benefit, we're the best, here's what I can do, no one else can do it, blah, blah, blah. If they're looking for something different and they want to know what the best of the best do, people who are working with senior executives and are very, very successful, beating quota every year, what are the best practices that they use? What is the methodology that can really differentiate me in the eyes of my customer? Do I want my customer thinking of me as a typical sales rep? Or do I want my customer looking at me as a strategic advisor, someone who's educating me, someone who's providing insight to me, someone who really cares about what my goals are? If that's your goal, then this is a book that I think that the reader would find very valuable. It's really packed with unique best practices and approaches that will help to differentiate that sales rep in the eyes of their customer.
Excellent. Yeah. And definitely a book I recommend. There's a lot of templates, tools, and it's very technical, very applicable. It's not fluff. It's really a real life experience, expertise that can be applied to this type of sales process and complex sales. So, congratulations for the book.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Dan. So this completes today's podcast. Unless maybe you want to share any more elements before we close.
Yes, there's a couple of things that I'd like to just touch upon. First is, who is the book not intended for? Well, you have to realize it came out of my experience, and my experience is in working with educated customers in the high-tech healthcare world, big ticket clients who are making big investments that typically are complex. So if you're selling something that is a very low sale price and does not require access to senior executives and is a one sales call type approach, this book would probably not be for that person. This is a much more high